All right, YouTube, it's time for another hangout here, another live stream. I know it's at an odd time. Of course, it's not even noon. It's on a Monday. So I can't imagine quite as many people tune in. Maybe it's going to be more for the European audience or something like that. I'll wait here for a moment as a few people at least filter in. I realize probably not as many people will be watching at this time specifically because of the time of day. But it's time to wrap up some political events for the last few weeks. Just ramble a little bit about some of the shitty stuff we find on Facebook as usual. First and foremost, though, I'd like to say something. And it's regarding these live streams in general. Some people thought that I was replacing the solo live streams, that I was going to stop doing these in favor of doing one that's, got a co-host or co-hosts. I'm actually going to be doing both. I'd like to increase the output of material on the channel, especially related to live content. I just think that that's a good idea. I realize, again, for those just tuning in, I realize this is a little bit of an odd time of day. But I mean, it'll go on there. It's live right now, but then it'll be like a video, like a regular video, and people can tune in later and hear exactly what I was talking about. I am not yet ready to announce who the co-host will be, but he has accepted the offer to be the co-host of what will be provisionally entitled the Alt-Light Podcast or something along those lines. Political topics, general banter. That one, I'm actually thinking of the possibility that if there's going to be more than one co-host, like if I told him basically, well, you can go and find one or two other people you'd feel comfortable with having a general hangout and discussion with. If we're going to do that, if there are going to be like 3 or 4 people involved, maybe shorten that particular segment up and not have call-ins. And I'll set something up solo with longer broadcasts like this that I'm doing myself and actually set up some sort of call-in system. I've had people make many suggestions related to OBS, streaming through that and allowing a call-in. You can have a virtual call-in line. I've thought about getting a smartphone, hooking that up, or a second laptop with Skype or Google Talk or something like that. It's still kind of up in the air. I'll fiddle around with it. I did familiarize myself with how Google Talk works, and it seems to be fine to me. But the audio quality for that is more like an actual phone, whereas Skype, it just makes things easier. And I think if you pay like a really small monthly fee, you can accept phone calls through Skype as well anyway. So I'm thinking about just using that. Like it's a piece of software I'm familiar with. I would just have to figure out, I am assuming I'd need a second device. I just need to figure out exactly how that's accomplished. I'm not going to use my personal phone number or anything like that. I'll just have some other shit set up. It should be fairly simple. It'll take some tinkering. I'll probably have other people helping me set it up to make sure that it all works. It's like even on the sort of test hangout I did with my co-host, I had to fiddle around there. I didn't know exactly why, but for some reason my audio wasn't coming through. Then I realized my computer was trying to use the microphone as the speakers and the speakers as the microphone. I don't know in what realm this was accomplished, but it actually happened. I'm sitting there mystified until I figure out how to actually play with the settings, because I'm used to doing this on my own. The settings are at the top. But then when you've got multiple people on the call within a Google Hangout, you've got to actually go to the side, actually above where their little thing is and where your little sort of sidebar is. And you've got to fiddle around with that too. And it's all very mystical and it's all very strange to me because I've never actually tried doing a hangout with anybody else before, but I got the hang of it. It only took like 5 minutes. So that it's all set up and ready to go. It would be probably live. And then of course it'd be populated to YouTube. My co-host would be able to grab the video from that using a keep vid or something and then slap it on his channel as well. But again, I will not be announcing who this is because remember, even if it's already been agreed to, it is still, until it happens, it's still technically up in the air. I could get in a car crash or something like that. So it's always best to wait until things, never count your chickens before they hatch in general. But there's definitely a lot of news to talk about. I've got some notes here. I was going to do, again, separate video topics for some of these. But in some cases, there's always a few things where you're promised gold, and you end up getting a turd. And I think the best example of that right now is James O'Keefe and his CNN releases. They were extremely underwhelming. It wasn't anything like what we got from him during the election. Here he is promising thousands of hours of secretly taped CNN stuff. We're going to take down the network. Nobody fucking cares. Like, even people in the alt media, they took a look at this. It wasn't properly gone through. That is, there's a huge amount of boring material for a very few things that were kind of interesting. Nothing extraordinarily scandalous. I think one of them was one of the CNN correspondents they're talking about his cock and stuff like that. Okay, that's a little bit weird, but is that exactly going to take down CNN? I'm thinking probably not. No, I think that the way to take down the legacy media is for all of the larger social media barons, so to speak, to get together and encourage all of their fans and followers to cancel all of their subscriptions and begin using ad block software anytime they use, like, CNN.com or any of these other sites. I'm prepared to try to organize with as many people as possible to do that as quickly as possible. I see it as a good career move too. It's not just the moral principle is CNN and MSNBC and Fox and all these fucking groups, they lie to people constantly. There's no justification for their existence. They're inefficient, woefully so. They lie constantly. Most of what they put out is just bias anyway. What's really the point of them existing? From a commercial or a moral standpoint, they're lying to, I mean, it's almost personal. They're lying to me too. They're lying to all of you. Why shouldn't we do anything we can to just take out the TV media entirely, switch over to social media? Like, radio is more relevant at this point than the TV era media, and some of the old guard web that's, you know, sort of coordinates with them anyway, like Salon or something. Why shouldn't we target them? And so I'm going to try to get something together, again, with as many other larger accounts as possible. And my thought is, if you could get a few dozen of the larger sort of politically adept YouTubers together to do this, and then tell everyone else, spread the word as well to all of the people that you know, whether it's in real life or online, we're talking about tens of millions of people, potentially. That's enough to significantly decrease the sway of the TV media. For instance, when you need to use links to any of their sites, archive them first so they're not getting ad revenue, using ad block on their site if you really have to use it at all. And as well, just perhaps even targeting the people that are funding their companies as well. Of course, they've got business backers. And those business backers, they don't want to be part of a national movement against them because they happen to be backing basically the legacy media if people get outraged enough about it. And with trust in a media at an all-time low, it's now down below, what is it, like 30% or something in the general population, and far lower among the youth, specifically the tech literate youth. What would be the point of not organizing to knock them out of the way? It would increase our flow of traffic, because then we'd be the main political heads of the Western world. So it's a good career move. And it also brings about more fairness, honesty, and transparency. You can connect with people online. You can't do that if you're watching TV. You can't. You're watching Fox News. You can't just type something out and send it in instantly and say, "Oh yeah, well, you know, this segment is totally wrong. This point you made was inaccurate, and that person over there is a shill and has connections to Monsanto," or something like that. It should be beneficial both to the right and the left and everybody else in between, to knock them out of the way and get all of the media online as much as possible. It should be uncensored and raw. It would be less subject to any form of censorship by any government, number two. So that's always good. You can connect with it and comment on it live in many cases. It'd be perfect. It'd be a perfect world. It'd be far better than what we've been doing with TV. It's an antiquated relic of a past era at this point. It's completely outdated. I don't watch TV. I know very declining number of people that I know watch TV as well. So it'd just be a generally good thing to do. And as usual, to anyone who's not aware of this fact, I am not watching the comments in the actual YouTube page where you're watching this stream right now, well, listening to it rather. That's because as far as I know, I still can't. That is, it will freeze, it will crash, and then I'll have to go back out, and I'll have to go back into the Hangout, and hopefully it'll even still be running, which it would be pointless. What's the point of it? I'm going to set something up so that I can, though. That's one promise I will make. Within another couple of shows, I'll have set some sort of system up outside of YouTube, probably, just for the comments. Either that or I'll have to artificially slow down the comments greatly and repeatedly go in and out of the actual room in order to read them. Otherwise, again, it will freeze. Now, I think I had other notes here as well. Oh, and for people who like the MRE videos also, one reason I haven't waded too deep into the foreign MREs and the other older MREs that I've got is that for the older ones, I'm not sure that everything in there is going to be edible, and I'm usually making those videos when I'm hungry enough to actually eat the MRE. For the foreign ones, they're all 24-hour MREs. They're not a single meal like the ones I've been eating. They're 3-meal-a-day sort of arrangements. The British one in particular looks quite large. And I'm not sure that I want to just sit there for an hour stuffing my face while I slowly process food that's been designed specifically to make you constipated. But I'm going to do what I can. And if I have to split up the 24-hour MREs into two smaller meals or something like that, then I'll do so. But yes, I will be calling for a general coordinated attack upon the legacy media fairly soon. Now that I couldn't do this before. It's like with the 2012 stuff, when I tried to get a bunch of occultists together and said, well, you know, we should do some sort of mass ritual or something, mostly just for effect. It'll be funny to see people's reaction. When I tried to do that, you know, I think I had less than 10,000 subscribers at the time. Now I'm soaring up towards 100,000. I'm starting to gain the notice of other larger YouTubers. I know Sargon has commented on my material. Varg, I've made several responses to him. He's commented. Among others, of course, H.A. Goodman recommended me on his channel as well. And then I ended up going past his count as well over time. It's up towards 100,000 now. So at this point, now that I've sort of got the ability to actually communicate with other people that have substantial subscriber bases, instead of just acting alone in everything that I do, it would make more sense for something. It would be a no-brainer to attack the legacy media. It's a no-brainer to try to get rid of them as quickly as possible, as much as possible. Again, we all benefit from doing that. It doesn't matter what your political affiliation happens to be. They're lying to everybody. They're lying to the left the same as they're lying to the right. They lie to nationalists. They lie to people who like global cooperation or whatever they want to term globalism now. It doesn't matter who you are. It's not like the government cares about what you have to say unless you're rich anyway. Again, it doesn't matter what your political affiliation is. It would also help to destroy authoritarianism, I would think. As the web grows and grows and becomes more of a powerhouse, it becomes harder and harder for other states. You know, you'd think of Turkey when it shuts down Facebook or Twitter or something. It becomes harder for them to do that as it gains more and more importance. That means that they put pressure on the internet at large, like the tech giants, to censor on their behalf. But they're not making that much headway in doing so. This like Google algorithm about toxic speech is probably going to go nowhere. It's just like Facebook and their fake news crap. Oh yeah, we'll suppress it, don't worry. And then what do they end up doing? They like target InfoWars. That's basically all they did. All these other sites, especially sites that don't even bill themselves strictly as news, like even like before it's news, you can still post that there. It still might end up trending or something like that. There's no fucking thing that they can do about it. They don't realize there are too many other sites for them to ever effectively block them. So I guess that's a good thing. But I think it's time to go through Facebook here and see what madness might actually be up with some of these pages. Oh, yeah. The New York Times is probably #1 on this for today, and has been for a couple of days now. They've been spamming on Facebook constantly for days. At a time when terms like alternative facts are everywhere, independent journalism is more important than ever. They don't conduct journalism. That's the point. It's what people have been trying to say for some time. They've got this readout, oh, the truth is hard. The truth is more important now than ever. Trying to build themselves as some virtuous messiah of true media. In reality, the New York Times is just a corporation like any other. And one thing that people need to keep in mind, whether it's the New York Times or any of these other groups, you've got to understand that just because a segment of the media proclaims itself to be of a political affiliation doesn't mean that it actually gives a fuck about people who follow generally that affiliation. They're still corporate media. It's the same thing. They get their money from banks. They get their money from the same corporations that back all the other groups, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, Breitbart. They're all exactly the same. There are very few exceptions. I think Drudge is probably the only significant exception to this. Matt Drudge is probably one of the few independent journalists that's actually left, and even he has his own problems as well. Oh yeah, you get a Business Insider is probably the most retarded page on Facebook. There are plenty that are more biased. There are plenty that are more dumb in the way that they write articles, but Business Insider has got to be the most dumb overall. Everything we know about Donald Trump's unhealthy diet, yes, he doesn't get regular exercise, therefore that somehow affects his political policies or something. And then you've also got being liberal. But I can't blame them when they're going after Ken Ham, in all honesty. Because that dude, or was it Kentucky, the one that built that Ark, the amusement park, and they've got like animatronic dinosaurs and animatronic Neanderthals living side by side and talking about how all the animals fit onto the Ark, including the ones that didn't exist yet because they hadn't been actually bred and so forth. Yeah, that's evolution 101 according to Ken Ham, I suppose. The last time he was relevant was only in the shadow of Bill Nye when they were having a debate. It's pretty sad when Bill Nye is not even an actual scientist, and he still knows far more about reality than Ken Ham does. I can't stand with the evangelical nuts. That's my problem. With some parts of the far right, it devolves into nothing more than just a states' rights movement or an evangelical movement. But then I look over at the left, and I see the same evangelism. It's just Islam or sometimes Judaism, anti-Semitism instead of Christianity. And then I look at their recent proposals. They appear to be states' writers at this point. They're talking about how great it is that Jerry Brown or Phil Scott or some of these other figures would stand against evil orange Dorito Hitler Trump. The Democrats are looking more like they did at the dawn of the Civil War. You ain't going to trod in our states' rights. We're going to keep our slaves or something like that. It's what they resemble now. The Republicans are almost the socially progressive party on some measures when it comes to these things. Then meanwhile, you've got the same Republicans that were so up in arms and they were all states' writers under like the Tea Party. All of a sudden they want to beat up on the states and assert federal supremacy. So it's like the hypocrisy is not lost on either of these sides. Let's see. Oh, another post from Being Liberal. What's this about? Japan. If we translated his words as they are, we would end up making ourselves sound stupid. America, who cares? Didn't we nuke dem Japs already twice? Yeah, wonderfully written post by Being Liberal. For a very short time, they took FDR off as their actual icon there. Then they slapped him back on. They wanted a bitter, crippled bigot to be their standard bearer of the left, which makes sense considering what the Democratic Party has stood for. They still think that they're actual liberals running the Democratic Party. That's probably the funniest part. And they think, oh yeah, liberalism, what does it mean now? States' rights, number one. Islamic evangelism along with outright Jesus worship, so long as you're asserting that Jesus was a refugee, number two. And globalism over national sovereignty, number three, with lots and lots of censorship to go around. I guess that's a liberal now. Oh, no, I never would have guessed. 10 years ago, they wouldn't have had these crazy ass beliefs. It's to the point. I go back and I remember the Bush period. And I railed against the Republican Party. I'm like, what are these fuckers doing? And I wanted to be able to support an actual mainstream party. I didn't want to be led down into sort of the oh, we need third parties. Oh, I'm just bitter at them all sort of stuff. I actually frowned upon it at the time. But the Democrats then, they got so bad, there was no possible way to support them. If you're not in favor of war, why the hell would you support the Democratic Party? The Democratic Party bombed people repeatedly for Obama's entire administration. We got involved in Libya. We got involved in Syria and Iraq. We got involved again in Afghanistan. We were fucking up all of these different nations. We tried to overthrow Egypt. When I say we, I mean Obama and his cronies, not, you know, the general population. He waged a silent war, and his fans, which, you know, not even a decade prior had been like, oh, stop the war, killing civilians is wrong, no more blood for oil. All of a sudden they had no problem with it as long as it was a bunch of robots fighting for them instead of the actual troops. It's kind of scary to think about what this could escalate to. If we develop full on android warfare or something like that, are these people ever going to have a problem with limitless war? Are they ever going to care if we march, you know, 1 million robots into some nation and completely firebomb it into non-existence? I guess as long as we don't have boots on the ground, they don't care if we have drones hovering in the sky or something like that. Yeah. Trump's Sunday afternoon Twitter tantrum is a steaming pile of delusions and hypocrisy. More unbiased journalism from being liberal, of course. Oh, yeah, and then there were the Oscars. I didn't watch them. But then again, I wasn't trying to boycott the Oscars because, oh, they're going to, you know, do the Hollywood diversity, rich liberal thing. I've never watched them before either, so I can't really do that much commenting on them. But from what I'm seeing from others, it appears to have been a political event. Well, no shit. There's another reason why I wouldn't watch the Oscars, that and it's boring. You've got a bunch of multi-million-dollar A-lister movies vying for attention from multi-million-dollar A-listers. What could be more boring than that? I'd rather watch Survivor. I'd rather watch C-SPAN, honestly, than tune into that crap. I don't care who won any award. I don't care why they won it. I don't care who hosts it. I don't care who attends. I don't care who gets drunk out in the seats and raises hell and has to be escorted out. Probably Mel Gibson, let's face it. It doesn't matter. The Oscars so white, the Oscars so goyish, Oscars so black, Oscars so whatever. No, it's just Oscars so boring. Who's tuning into it? I hope none of you are watching the Oscars and giving them the time of day as far as their ratings went. It'd be nice if it didn't exist at all. Yeah, let's take the same people who make millions of dollars and try to get awards by being actors and celebrities and all these things. Then they manufacture their scandals to maintain relevance when they get older, usually. Or they do some sort of really deep reflective period piece to say, oh, this really coincides with my old soul of acting. And here's this silver-haired dude who was relevant back in the 1930s. We're going to give him a lifetime award. He hasn't made a movie in 50 years, but somehow we still love him. You know, we never gave him an award before. We totally fucking ignored the dude. But here, he's got a lifetime of achievement now. That's how the Oscars operate. It's how all these, the Emmys or whatever, fucking retarded if you ask me. But I'm just going to go through here and see what else I can find. I'm sure there'll be plenty of stuff. Oh, another Business Insider article. Oh, the director called Donald J. Trump's law inhumane. The winner of the Best Foreign Film Oscar boycotted the awards because of Trump's immigration ban. Well, I guess you don't fucking get your award. I guess you decided to put your politics before your career, which is, in a way, commendable, I suppose. But it's like you're boycotting the Oscars that don't matter anyway. You should boycott something that's actually meaningful. Oh, yeah, and then they're drumming up, oh, this is how impeachment works and what a president would have to do to be impeached. Yeah, not going to happen, but you can keep dreaming. But we're going to keep going through and seeing all these headlines. See, this is why I hate the corporate media. This is why you should hate the corporate media, too. And by the way, now that there are 1,000 people watching this, which is surprising considering it's fairly early in Monday, it's actually hilarious that many people would tune in. I thought it'd be like 10 people. For those who don't know, I'm not looking at comments because I can't. It'll freeze up the feed. Trump is reportedly about to propose boosting defense spending and slashing funding for the EPA. Who fucking cares if he slashes EPA funding? The EPA doesn't do anything anyway. It's a bunch of glorified bureaucrats that pretend to care about the environment. When Bush was president, the EPA sat on its ass and did nothing because all Bush had to say was, oh yeah, don't enforce anything. And so for 8 years, they were totally toothless. Obama comes along, he weaponizes the EPA, says, yeah, we're going to go after all the businesses that don't like me, and we're going to go screw them by applying all sorts of arcane rules that we don't even really care about to them to make them pay more and to inconvenience them and drag them through court, while ignoring the businesses that happen to back me, or their CEO says, oh yeah, Obama's a pretty cool guy and he comes and plays golf. We'll leave them alone. We'll inconvenience my political adversaries. And then you have the King gold mine there towards the end, where the same EPA that supposedly is there to clean up the environment, accidentally, it was total accident. It wasn't just some fucking stupid intern that didn't know what they were doing because their training sucks, unseals the gold mine and turns the river yellow, and all the, what was it, the Navajo reservation, I think it was, or Apache, downstream, they have to get water tanked in because for weeks they couldn't drink that water because it's filled with all sorts of pollutants, all sorts of heavy metals like arsenic and lead and shit. And then the water that they give them, Obama, friend of the minorities, fucking shafts the Native Americans that are actually suffering. It's not like this crap with the oil pipelines. Like, this group of people can't even drink their own water on their own land at this point. You truck the water in, it's like filled with oil and it's all fucked up, and the tankers that they used weren't even washed out before, and there were like suds floating in the water. It's, yeah, that's so healthy to drink. Thank you, Obama, for taking care of us Redskins, I suppose. Can you imagine how fucking shitty that must have been? And the media didn't even want to talk about it. They're like, oh yeah, the EPA accidentally polluted the river. Don't worry, folks, though. They're there to protect the environment. I'm sure they'll clean it up really fast. You know how they clean it up was they replugged it and then just waited for the pollution to go out to the ocean, essentially. All sorts of people got that into their land. There are people, they have private wells near the water. They get contaminated. They have to have emergency water supplies for, what was it, a fucking month. Terrible inconvenience to everyone living near downriver. And the EPA never said, they didn't even bother apologizing. Like, oh, sorry, we made a boo-boo. We made a mistake. We're such good environmentalists, though. Don't worry about us. We'll take care of the problem. Now, what took care of the problem was the next time it rained and washed most of that back out. But it's still in the food chain, so enjoy your contaminated fish, I suppose. That's what the EPA is really about. Oh. It is hard to explain the horror I felt the first time I laid eyes on this photograph, and it is all the more frightening when compared to similar photos of Obama. Was this loathsome, menacing portrait of Trump created to intimidate Americans? Yes. The fact that Trump doesn't have a shit-eating grin at all times means he's trying to intimidate you. It couldn't be that he just prefers not to smile constantly when there's nothing to fucking smile at. You'd be smiling too if you had the entire corporate media constantly declaring you to be Adolf Hitler. Yes, I'm sure you'd find that very, very funny. Let's see. Oh, yeah, here's another. Places where BBC reporters are banned: Rwanda, North Korea, Iran, Zimbabwe, and the White House. Yeah, okay. Yeah, they're banned US-wide. You're comparing countries to one specific political edifice, which is more than within its rights to ban your reporter who isn't even a fucking American. It's fucking British media. What makes you think that you're entitled? I don't understand. Yeah. Watch the moment Moonlight wins Best Picture after La La Land gaffe. Yeah, apparently, I didn't see this, but you can say whether I'm wrong or right here. Apparently, they announced the wrong picture for Best Picture, and there was a big problem with that, and it was like the biggest mistake they ever made. I'm not surprised. These people are stupid. I don't know what they're doing. Oh, yeah, and probably some of you heard the father of that Navy SEAL that died during the first operation Trump actually launched that involved humans, as opposed to, like, you know, just dropping bombs or using a drone. Well, and I don't support that, by the way. I don't support the drone warfare sort of crap. It's the same as Obama was doing. It's not going to help anybody. Apparently, the father of that SEAL is raging mad and calling for an investigation into Trump's decision-making on that. And I actually support that. Anytime there's a situation where the U.S. military, prompted by the executive branch or whatever it happens to be, launches something that goes wrong, there should be some sort of investigation. There should be some sort of closure. I don't think that maybe he's motivated politically, but at the very least, he's still entitled to be motivated at all, to call for some sort of questioning as to what fucking happened there. Anytime that U.S. soldiers are killed or maimed or whatever, or captured, or something goes wrong, a tank gets blown up, anytime that happens, there should be some sort of even cursory investigation just to show, yes, somebody fucking cares about the military. Somebody fucking cares about their family. I don't care whether Trump's the president, Obama. It doesn't fucking matter. Give them the investigation they're calling for. It's the right thing to do. If it's cursory, so be it, but give them some sort of closure. At least let's pretend that the legislature fucking cares about the troops. I think Trump does. Even Obama, I think Obama did too. Is probably the reason he used drones so often. But he cared about his public approval much more than he cared about anybody's life. We'll wait to see what Trump's decision will be on that. At the same time, though, I do hope that there's some sort of probe. We need proper intelligence. We need proper strategy. Doesn't matter who's heading the U.S. military as the commander-in-chief at the time. It shouldn't even be a political issue. There shouldn't be a political motivation. The political party should shut the fuck up when something like that happens and do their job. It's not going to happen. That's utopian nonsense. It'll never occur. But that's, morally speaking, in a pragmatic fashion as well. They should act in that way. Will they? No, probably not. But we can hope for the best, I suppose. Hope that there's some closure for people whose sons and daughters have been, they had their legs blown off or something like that. This is why we shouldn't be fucking around in the Middle East to begin with. My opinion on that doesn't change just because Trump happens to be the president. Just because I think that he's more able to implement a strategy that will work doesn't mean that I think we need to be implementing anything over in the third world. I think we should be safeguarding ourselves and focusing on bigger issues. I think we should have more forces in the South China Sea at this point and leave the fucking Middle East alone. We're weaning ourselves off of Middle Eastern oil anyway. Let the Saudis take care of it. They pretend that they're our greatest friends. All the politicians say, oh yeah, the Saudis love us. We love the Saudis too. We're all buddy-buddy with Sheikh, whatever his name is over there. King Salmon or Salmon or Solomon or whatever the fuck it is. We're such great friends. Well, then, if they're such great friends of ours, wouldn't they want to make sure they can keep giving us oil by using their own military to fuck around in the region? Let them take care of it. They're over there. Their citizens have to live in that hellhole. Ours don't. Ours are over here on the other side of the world. Why are we involved? They don't need our help. They've already got a massive military. They've got U.S. weapons. They've got U.S. intelligence. I think that'd be enough of an advantage to overcome, some Yemeni rebels or something like that. Apparently, they even have difficulty with that. It's like their troops are never battle tested. In a lot of these countries, they've got oversized militaries that are relatively adept in a technological fashion. They have U.S. intelligence or Russian intelligence or whatever to help them out. They have all sorts of advantages, and yet they have difficulty with a very small number of rebels that aren't even really like full-on guerrilla warfare mode. And all I can think of is, well, none of their people have ever actually been in warfare. So once they get there, they're like terrified and uncoordinated because they've never actually properly tested like their organizational system, like actually communicating with their troops. So the intelligence no longer matters because nobody's fucking getting it and they don't know what's going on. It's like they're fighting blind or something. That's all I can assume is actually happening. We can go through here, probably a few more things on here. The big data billionaire waging war on mainstream media. Yeah, the left doesn't like it when the corporate media gets hit. To me, it doesn't matter whether there's some rogue billionaire fighting them. I mean, he's going to do it for profit, for a market share. Maybe he invests in social media firms. The end result is the same, though. Do you think that TV is going to be able to continue limping along with decreasing audience for the rest of eternity? It's not going to happen. It'll either be relegated to the dustbin of history, or it'll be like shortwave or something like that, or maybe AM radio. It'll just be sort of a toy that some people are nostalgic for it. It has a handful of advantages in some areas, maybe. And then you'll end up getting like fringe individuals will be on TV. Like Alex Jones will say, oh, yeah, I can get a TV network for cheap because they're so unpopular. And I'll probably be the highest rated because we've already got fans. He'll end up on there. And with co-host Art Bell, and then Coast to Coast will have its own channel. And then everything else will be a bunch of paranormal shit or something like that. Yeah, welcome to the UFO channel. Here we present to you 48 hours a week of nonstop live feeds of the sky. Here, maybe you'll see a meteor too, so it's all good. We can call ourselves astronomy. We're a science-related channel, damn it. Yeah, that's what they do. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens to TV. I feel sorry for some of the younger people. They get into TV. They get the journalism degree or whatever. They end up in some newsroom And then, you know, not that long after they get in there, you know, like 2-3 years later, viewership starts to go down and down and down. Meanwhile, there are people that are rapidly rising up on social media. I have to think there are probably some more talented people with journalism degrees that are in some little media field office somewhere. There's like an auxiliary office of some small town newspaper or something. And they're bored to death, and they've got 10 people that like their Facebook page. And I bet they wish they had dropped out of college and just started a YouTube channel and started tweeting and getting like an Instagram or something like that, because they'd be making more money. They'd be far more well-known. They would have saved a lot of money, and they wouldn't be part of a dying industry. But now they've locked themselves into that industry, and they have to fight for its survival. And there are probably a lot of higher-ups too that wish that they had had the foresight to see, maybe back in the 90s or the early 2000s, how big social media was going to get. And they wish that they had taken their skills and built a startup or applied to work with Google or Facebook or something like that, but they ignored it because they were convinced that it was going to be secondary. There were a lot of people back then who said, well, the internet's fun, email's pretty cool, but it's not going to be like TV. You know, we don't have the computing power to do that sort of thing on the internet. It's going to be text only. You'll have basically, in a literal sense, you'll have ICQ and email and stuff like that, and that's basically the limits of it. You'll have a web address. You can slap a couple of really low quality, grainy pictures on there, and that's going to be the internet of the future. It'll be cool, but ultimately it's a toy. You'll have some like 4-bit games and stuff like that. And then it starts to grow very rapidly. And by the time 2000 comes around, all of these people are proven wrong. By the time 2010 comes around, they're practically ready to hang themselves because they invested in the wrong media outlets. They thought TV was going to continue being big, and it did for a decade, and now it's, even with social media alone, not even the internet at large, and declining fast. Those poor people. It's like if any upstart comes along, here's my advice to people, especially those that are younger. Over the next decade or two, if something comes along and looks like it's going to be like Internet 2.0 in a more literal fashion, like something that's like the internet, more interconnected though, more immersive, like 3D, like it overlaps onto your real environment around you, get into it as quickly as you can. Study everything that you can about it and get on board very early. Because if it arises, it will get bigger. It will naturally grow if it has any usefulness at all. And the chances are higher that it will take off than that it won't. So that would be I know I would gladly migrate to such a system. You know, you get basically, imagine an internet, but the computers you're using, everything's like a holograph, and you're just plunging your hands into like this 3D matrix and manipulating things. And you can like make music that way. You'd have like a little keyboard there and all sorts of weird shit. Be able to manipulate sound, you know, in front of you, whether you're wearing goggles or not, or whether it's a projection. And like when you're going through your folders and stuff, it'd be like you'd have a holographic projection of an actual shelf in your room, and you can actually go through the files with your fingers or something like that, and like grab them, put them on the screen, and they would open themselves, stuff like that. The internet would be like literally holographic. It'd be like fucking Star Wars or something. Yeah, where it's within our technological capabilities to build such a thing. We could build a totally new, it would be totally new. It'd be totally separate from the actual internet. It'd probably be connected to it, but it'd be its own system. If something like that arises and becomes even remotely profitable, I want to be one of the first people to get in on it, because it'll be the next big thing. The internet will not be the end-all be-all of communication unless we undergo like a nuclear war or something. My advice is, if it arises, if that technology does develop, get on board. We see the rudiments of it with the 3D sort of stuff and the AI that we have now. It's going to get more advanced, not less. The idea that we're approaching the end of our processing power is retarded. We're nowhere near it. We're not even halfway there. We have the ability to do things that are far more advanced than what we have now. People were saying 10 years ago, oh, we're nearing the end. We'll never get beyond like the PS2 generation of gaming. We'll never get beyond, you know, this relatively primitive system that we've got, whatever it happens to be. It's impossible to have like HD video online. We won't have the processing power. We won't have the means. We can't store it all. The files would be too large. And you look now, and that was totally wrong. The pessimists have always lost out. Even in TV, they did too there. Radio, everything else, they've always lost. So don't even bother listening to them a little bit. But anyway, I think it's about time to end this live stream and had my little rant of the day, so to speak. I will be doing more. Don't worry. I will keep doing the solo live streams. There will also be a live stream where I'm with others. I will set up a call-in line, however I have to do that. There'll be more topics as well in the future. I'll maybe come better prepared. This is sort of a rant, though, honestly. And I'll be doing other work throughout the day, but I do need to get outside as well because, honestly, it's about 55 degrees right now and partly sunny. And I've got bad spring fever. I also need to order a bunch of seeds so I can grow my friggin' carrots and stuff like that. So I hope you all have a very good day, and you can consider canceling your newspaper subscriptions and your cable subscriptions and all that crap, because you should. It's the right thing to do. I'm very surprised that like 1,200 people were tuned into this at this time on a Monday morning. Yeah, maybe I'll do a second stream later or something. You know, what else am I going to do? That's about all. Peace out.